Hello and welcome back to Brandenburg practice. This is Brandenburg C-3. 3 more days until we do the concert. So today I warmed up a little bit. I didn't really have anything interesting to share with you earlier in the day, but what I wanted to do is have sort of a mock, a trial. I didn't really have a lot to work on like I thought I might. I could have maybe done more on piccolo earlier in the day, but I thought it might be more valuable, or at least this is just how it worked out, since I couldn't make up my mind. I thought I'd try what I actually might do on Wednesday night, right? So I warmed up later in the afternoon, but just kind of partially. I did some, what did I do? I did some long tones on B flat trumpet. I did a little bit of alto trumpet, which actually seems like it's really helping, so I might have to bring my alto trumpet to warm up for my piccolo trumpet. For whatever reason, that combination seems to be going really well. And if you're watching and you have an idea of why that is, I don't want to know about it. I both want to figure it out myself, and also I think there are some obvious answers that it isn't. So that sounds a little arrogant. I don't mean it to come off that way, but the alto trumpet stuff is really a mystery, and I guess if you have experience, I would love to hear it, but like write it in an email with a really good title so that I can look at it when I'm ready. That's kind of what I'm after, because I want to try to figure it out first, and then I want to talk to somebody about it. That's my goal. So anyway, so we've already done that part of the day. I did some violins on C trumpet. I did a little bit of Clark number 1 on B flat trumpet. My lip feels a little bit tender now later in the day. And so that's not great, but we're going to just try it out and see. And so when I actually go to the gig, I'll probably, there's a couple of things that always happen, right? One is that you talk to people too much, right? So, and you can't be antisocial. So I have to remember that I'm not going to get to play a lot, and then I'm just going to have to play this piece, right? So we want to sort of mimic that. But I am going to play a couple of notes, and I am going to do that on my own where there aren't a lot of people, even if I have to do it in my car or something. So we'll have the piccolo trumpet, and I probably won't play a lot of notes that aren't on the piccolo trumpet at the gig. Like I said, I might bring my alto trumpet if it seems like that's really going to be necessary, but I'm just going to start with the piccolo, and I'm going to try to make this piccolo easy and sound good, right? That was my goal yesterday and forever and ever. So that's what I'm trying to do. So just little things like that. We're also doing a microphone test. As you may be able to tell, I have 2 different microphones, and one of them is wireless. I have a little battery pack down here. I finally got some new stuff in and some new mic cables. So there's a couple of things we want to try out, and I'll do that as we go here. Let's try the other microphone. So here we go, switching. And this is the other microphone sound. I don't know if it's going to be better or worse or louder or softer. I tried to set it up similarly, but the battery pack also has its own power, and one of the mics doesn't work tethered, but they both work with the battery pack. So I don't know. So just little things again, same as what we were doing yesterday, basically. I probably won't need to warm up much more than that, honestly. I don't know how many minutes or seconds or whatever that was. Let's switch back to the other microphone. And as a matter of fact, let me turn up my trumpet microphones. At some point I should show you this whole setup, but I want to be hooked into it so you can hear different settings and things. That might be a nice video to make for 3-minute TikTok. But I got to get back to TikTok. I haven't done one in almost 6 months, I think. So, and some of them are a year old now, so I really need to be making content. But there you go. All right. So let me mute both of my lapel mics. My as I like to, they're called lavaliers, Lavalier, but I like to call them lavalier. So I am going to mute them both so that I can just hear trumpet sound. And I listen back to these later to see if that's the sound I really want or if there's something missing or something different. And I'm going to pay special attention to intonation, tail, right? That I want to hit the note in tune, but I also want it to stay in tune as I play. And I don't always do that, especially on D in the staff. You'd think I'd hit it low, but because I'm compensating already, I'm usually hitting it high and letting it fall off, which is a bad habit. So I really need to work in that register. So we're going to do a little bit more. This is more practice than I'll probably do tomorrow, but it's still C-3, right? So I can practice a little. I don't have to do a perfect mock-up. So that was a good one. Excuse me, that was a good one, right? That one really felt centered, F sharp. And I really want to get G. You might say, why don't you go for A? There's A's in the Brandenburg. There's only a few, right? So I know that I can play that note. I don't need to bust my chops on it. And a lot of people can play that note and they sound really good on it and they can play it all day. I'm not one of those people. I can play it on B flat trumpet for a long time, but on the piccolo, to really pick it out off and tongue and everything and not sort of slide into it, I really don't want to do that and bruise my chops. And then, like I said, I might be overthinking it. I might sort of be being too careful, right? Maybe I could do it, but if I know I can do it, what's the point of doing it, right? To make sure, I guess. And there's something to be said for just having that confidence in yourself in your abilities that you know you've set up. I'll find out tomorrow. If I play it tomorrow and I don't get any of the double high A's in the rehearsal, well, then I'm going to have to do something about that on Tuesday, right? And that'll be down to the wire, because if I do too much, then I cost myself the concert again, right? So that's the kind of thing you want to think about. But at least I do. Like I said, I might be overthinking it. Yeah, okay, great. I will try not to, but I can only do so much, right? All right, let's try this a little bit and see. This is going to be what the rehearsals kind of feel like, right? I'll play a few notes for, well, I don't know. Let's see if my stream has time on it. Yeah, it does, right? 9 minutes? Yeah, that's probably about right. I'll show up way earlier than that and probably spread it out over time. But when you get talking to somebody or whatever, sometimes you don't play until, you're like, oh, geez, we got a rehearsal in 10 minutes. Okay, but let me hurry up. And then you're liable to play too much. So it's good to try to have little conversations with people and then just sort of agree to turn away and play a few notes. Michael will be there, so maybe we'll both do that to get warmed up. Anyway, so we're not going to run through this whole thing. I just want to see what certain parts of it sound and feel like, and I want to be able to listen back to that in a good setting and, see what I think. flat still. I also don't play this. Thank you, Michael. Boom, 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 boom. So we've decided to play that last note. Sorry, we've decided to play that last note 2 and 3, and that seems to still be working. So we're going to keep doing that. I haven't been counting, so. Originally, I was going to play this. Originally, I was going to play all this, but Michael talked me into it, and I think this is better. So, it's hot in here. That's the first movement. Now, there's one person watching. If you want to ask me some questions, we've got 4 minutes. 4 minutes before we try to do the next thing. So that's going to be, I'm just talking to myself, 1935 on my stream, or rough 1930 about. So I'm just not going to do anything, including play, but I can talk. And I'll just get the music set up. I could probably do this without music, but, you know, maybe on my 10th one, I'll try it without music, you know? Not my second one. This is only the second one I've ever done. I can talk a little bit about some of the trumpet things. I'm going to push in a little bit, just for those high Gs, to be a little bit better in tune, a little bit less out of reach. I didn't get the high As. Like I said, I'm not going to try to bust them out right now. I did them, but I didn't force them, right? And it takes some discipline to do that. It's still, my lip still doesn't feel super great, but it's not terrible either. And I have a feeling by Wednesday, my lip is going to feel about like what it does right now anyway, right? So, you know, I'm going to have to deal with that. And if I miss, the other thing about this is if I miss every double high A, right, that's 3 notes, right, out of all of the notes. And it's also the loudest part of that movement. Nobody's going to know, right? Nobody's going to notice. I mean, maybe trumpet players, and if I really frack it hard, but it'll be like that, where I get like the wrong partial, but something's kind of like, I don't know, it'll just sound like a broken note, not like a clipped, I mean, probably, I guess. I won't know until I'm there, right? But 2 more minutes if they're playing very slowly. So yeah, so all we're doing is listening and trying not to be a distraction to the audience now, right? The second movement is really, really beautiful. In fact, so much so that I was listening to it in the car the other day, and I thought, you know, somebody should transcribe this for, I bet you could do it for like brass quintet and extra piccolo trumpet. Because if you think about it, you've got the violin part, you've got the oboe part, right? You've got the flute or recorder really part, right? And so you could put those. Now the tough part is they're all very high instruments, right? So it might be better like maybe trumpet ensemble plus brass quintet is the tutti. Maybe that's the better way to do it. So you have the 4 soloists, and I guarantee you, though the oboe and the oboe and the flute parts are going to be way harder than the piccolo trumpet part ever was, right? And probably the violin part, but you might not play that on piccolo trumpet. You might play it on E flat or something. And somebody may have already done this. If somebody knows, please contact me with that information, because I would love to see an arrangement of this. It's also not really necessary because it already doesn't get done a lot in its current form. So it's not like people are clamoring to do Brandenburg all the time, right? It's more along the lines of like maybe people who think they can do it would do it if they could do it without hiring a whole string orchestra and a conductor and all that, or waiting for the day, waiting by the phone, right? So anyway, all right, we're at 1915. That was when we're going to start to get nervous and want our horn to be empty. I'm going to go at 1930. And that's a there we go. I'm going to check my continuo. I'm going to look at the oboe player, or sorry, the oboe player's over here for me, and just make sure, and then we're going to go. That was me looking at the other instrumentalists as they come in so that I know kind of where to expect that. I'm sorry I didn't turn this off. I will now. So I'm pressing a little too hard, I believe, and I'm getting some funny results. So I'm going to back off the pressure and see what happens. I don't have to play these. that either. Sweet. Did you hear that fishtail at the end? Was me trying to be deliberate, and I got all kinds of funky stuff. But anyway, so okay, we actually did play all of it. Oops. But I felt good. I felt fine. I didn't feel like I want to play it again, necessarily, right? But and I didn't get everything perfect. I had that funny problem, but it did seem that I had the pressure problem. I think was the same old, right? Which is pretty. I mean, what else would it be, right? That I'm pressing a little more on my top lip. I'm trying to keep it down and keep my muscles firm, which I'm doing a good job of, but sometimes then that gets me some weird results that I think if I pressed through the muscle a little harder, I would get the result I'm looking for, but I would get bound up then. And if I take the pressure off, I actually probably need to take a little of the muscle away too, because I'm getting just on the edge of that sense of airballing, where I'm not tired, and I know it's not pressure, so that's being muscle bound, which is the second worst thing. Which the first worst was the first thing I said, right? The pressure and muscle being bound up together, if I have any trouble with this, I'm going to have to remind myself, and we're going to do it right now with some sticky notes and a white pencil. This is a Tel-E marker from this is a vintage Generals Tel-E marker. I believe it's kind of a wax pencil type thing. I believe it was used to mark on dark plastic objects, like maybe records, or I'm not sure if anybody knows what this is originally, then tell me. To my student who asks, is that the Yamaha or the Schilke? It is the Schilke. And I decided a while back that I'm just going to try to use the Schilke. Yeah, and then, if something goes wrong with it, or, whatever, I'll have both piccolos there. So even in the concert, if something happens to the Schilke, hopefully Michael can cover me for a couple of bars while I switch horns. Everybody's going to yell at me because my case will be out on the stage and it looks terrible, but I don't care. Looks good to me. And I know it does. I mean, I do actually care a little bit, but I can't get anybody to copy it, and it's the only case I know I can reach into instantly and pick up the horn that I actually want. So anyway, all right, so what we're going to mark in here is, first of all, well, what do we do first? Well, we tried to apply even pressure, so even pressure. And then we'll say not top. Okay, because that's what I want to do. We're also going to say less pressure, question mark. Right? What else? Anchor tongue would be a good one. Because that means two things to me. It means anchor tongue position, which I do really like. Oh, you know what? And I need a third one. I'm going to have to... Okay, so these sticky notes are going to go in the part just for now. I'll take them out when I actually play. But this one's going to sound dumb to you, but higher equals blow harder. Because one of the things that was happening, now I didn't get a lot of my high G's there, right? And that sucks. But that's because I'm not really used to what I was trying to do the whole time, which is I try to play with one big airstream the whole time. I say big, it's not very big. Let's switch these again. I try to play with the same airstream basically the whole time, because everything happens kind of in an octave pretty much, especially if you eliminate all the low notes and give them to your assistant, right? So so it's basically within an octave and a half, I guess, is more, yeah, an octave and a half. And you can play an octave and a half with one airstream, but what I'm doing basically is, I think in order to not work too hard for the main in the staff stuff, I am using an airstream that plays all of that fabulously, but I need to accelerate it a little bit. I need to put a little more air into the high range. That's why my high range was flat, because I was getting it and I wasn't adding, I was doing everything right, but my overall air couldn't get quite up to speed. So I was getting the bottom part of that partial, and when I give it a little gas, when I give it a little more air, then it moves the slot. It moves the placement in that slot up a little bit, right? So that's what I was trying to do, and that's ends up meaning that I missed a lot of my high Gs, and that my top of the staff sometimes was crummy because I wasn't really I was in between those airstreams, and so my tongue position wasn't working. And this is stuff that I maybe should have figured out last week, but it wasn't happening last week. So this is the kind of stuff where, like, maybe that's going to be critical day of, or this week, or maybe all this stuff doesn't matter and it's easy, I can just play it. Or maybe I have other stuff I need to learn. So anyway, just a little short stream, half an hour here. I just wanted to, that might be how my rehearsal goes. And then I'm going to rehearse more, right? Because that's what a rehearsal is. You don't just run the piece. But I feel like I've done these things enough times. A lot of the times you run the piece first, because everybody wants to hear the whole thing. Everybody wants to talk about where, what's happening where. A lot of times we'll do it out of order because the second movement doesn't involve any of the soloists, so they can all go home, right? Is that true? No, that's not true. It just involves less people. I would love to do it in order, but I might ask for that after we've rehearsed a little bit. And if we do just decide to run it at the beginning, then that's my run, right? This is also a lot easier with other people for me. I don't know why. It's maybe that I'm not listening to myself as much. I'm trying to fit into the group. And so my music making is more externalized instead of internalized. So I'm less worried about, we can try some of that since we're practicing for the rehearsal, right? Let's try. Let's say we needed to do the third movement again, and yeah, just the ending maybe, right? We just want to make sure that goes well. Sorry, I left my mic on again. I'm starting to think of it right after, so now I'll eventually, Robbie, since you're the only one watching, if you keep watching me for years, you'll be able to see that it'll take me maybe a month or two to start remembering to hit the button before I start playing, and then it'll probably take me 2 or 3 more months to remember to hit the button after I'm done playing every time, and then that'll be like around the 6-month mark, I'll be in a good rhythm of it. So I guess not years, but, oh, now there's 2. Hi, whoever you are. Welcome to the end, basically the end of this stream, but thanks for coming. So let's do a couple more spots, right? That was good. That gives us a sort of sense of whether or not these things are going to work. Let me take my other, I don't have this one on anything yet, and let's get those out of the way of the music. So where do they go? That's a good question. I could put them sort of on the stands. Maybe that's a good place for them right now, because I can put the music underneath them. I don't know if you can see those. Not really, but they're right here. And so now I can see higher equals blow harder for me. I think that probably will work. And even pressure, not top. Less pressure, question mark, and anchor tongue. I didn't do anchor tongue, so let's work on this a little bit. Let's work on the beginning of the third movement. That's something that only involves a few people, and so I really got to get it right. kind of okay. A little bit out of tune, really, on the last couple of notes there. The anchor tongue position is funny because it does help me, but it does also want me to push on the top lip a little bit because I have to sort of move my jaw out to make room for my tongue. But it does make all the notes center a lot easier. And I'm also going too fast. We're not going to go that fast because it's really hard on the recorder especially to play these lines that fast, but it's really just hard on everybody. I mean, it's, you know, I don't know if it's hard on oboe. I imagine violin it's not much more hard than, or harder rather than a Mozart or something kind of symphony, but for sure on recorder, if you think about how those work, and even instruments that are related to recorder, I'm trying to think like the racket or something. Like they're not, even though the type of music they play tends to be these kind of lines, they only play that kind of stuff in certain keys because it's idiomatic. And then out of those keys, even if they're a chromatic instrument, man, it's really hard. You've got to move parts of your hands. I'm doing this. The great bass racket has like holes along your palm or like your knuckles there, as well as finger holes, and sometimes two. And so it's related to the bassoon, really. And yeah, so anyway, I don't know what the continuo is going to be either. It could be a bassoon, it could be the organ, it could be harpsichord and bass. I just don't, we haven't had that yet, so we'll find out, but they also might have a preference for the speed. So let's try it again. Let's try a different spot. Let's see. No, let's try that again. So we're thinking even pressure, anchor tongue, and I'm going to try to work on that, and I'll write it in my part if I need it. Oh, look at my oboe. Continuo, I think, will be back there. So it might be better if I don't start with anchor tongue and I just place it after I start, right? That might get me a better start. Yeah, I think I can do that. So it is harder. It is harder to get the air to flow through when I do anchor tongue position because it's sort of a more closed position. But I think if I open up the back of it a little bit more and keep the anchor tongue, that might work better. You don't want to change stuff like this too much right before a gig, but I have 3 days, right? I can decide what I'm going to do. I can write it in the part. I can remember to do it, and then it'll work better. If I don't remember to do it or don't write it in the part so that I remember, then it will be unfamiliar to me when I try to play it some other way that I didn't practice all week, right? This is a good way. I've been talking with a friend of mine recently about, she keeps saying like, well, you have those 2 dress rehearsals, that'll make you feel better. And I'm like, no, the dress rehearsals are the liability here. If I didn't have them, I would feel fine because I could just do what I need to do for the next 2 days and then bam, right into the gig. I could be well rested for sure, well hydrated for sure. I could have the right stuff in my stomach. I could make sure that the days before I'm just kind of like resting mentally and physically as much as possible, right? And it's not too much to ask for 3 days off, right, before a thing. But it is if your life is a little bit, yeah, exactly. 3 days, that's like a month, he says on the chat. Yeah, it's like forever, right? But if you have to play each of those days, that also feels like a month of playing every day, right? So you have to think about this, you know, I can change what I'm saying is, yeah, those are liabilities, but if if I'm changing stuff like this, that's going to help me figure out how to get through the piece musically and solidly and confidently, right, and still be a good musician with my colleagues, then all of those things are things that I can try in those dress rehearsals, and I can try them out and say, oh yeah, that does work better, or oh, you know, that seems like a liability now, right? I can make it through the piece one time for sure. I can still rehearse a little bit after that. That's good news. But I don't. I stopped there at the end this last time because I didn't want to go. I didn't want to do much more than that. Right? I can start to feel that fatigue. And the good news is you only have to make it through once. Right? Just like the Peter Maxwell Davies or well, the Jolivet concertino or the Tomasi. A lot of times when you do those pieces, you know, they're the only thing you're going to do because it's really hard to do anything else with them. But even if they're on your recital or something, you still only have to get through it once. There's a lot of people out there that will say, in preparation for a recital, for instance, you should be able to make it through the pieces twice in order. And then when you're under pressure, then you'll certainly be able to make it through once. And it's sort of a physical endurance builder, but it's also a mental confidence builder. And I agree with that. If the literature is really easy, even if it's a lot, you know, you should be able to make it through medium to easy literature twice. Maybe in order, maybe twice each in order, something like that, right? But as soon as you get into hard literature, especially if all of your program is hard, it's just not reasonable to try to ask yourself to do a double run through, right? That's just not something that you should try. I mean, you can try, but be ready and willing to fold, like to fold your hand, so to speak, to say, nope, this is the moment where if I play more, I will hurt my efforts for tomorrow. And that's where I'm at basically right now. Is there anything in the first movement before I quit for the day? I mean, those double high A's weren't great. There's some spots, but you know, not necessarily worth doing more. Yeah, the one spot that I might do, I'll do it and then we'll be done. Is this is good for my. Let me put. Let me get underneath the. This one doesn't work as well with the notes I made, but anyway, it's further down the page. It'll be fine. There's two spots. There's basically the middle of the page. So this is what I wanted to work on. I cack that first F sharp almost every time, or just miss it. And it's because I'm trying to do it with my tongue position without adding air. But when I just then added air, I got a double buzz because I had to add pressure too. So I think I just need to be stronger there, which isn't going to happen tonight. I need to write something though, and that's going to be corners. In fact, I'm not going to write a word even. I'm going to draw. I've done this several times. I have a little secret notation that I use for when I interface when I intentionally make the pressure uneven. I have a little secret notation that is like, it looks like a window. And it represents the four front teeth. I'm using that to say I need good corners. So I put a dot usually on the tooth that I'm trying to press into, but in this case I put two dots just outside the window of teeth. Um, we'll see if that works. My favorite recording of the Brandenburg, he asks. You know, honestly, I don't really have a favorite, and that sounds weird. My dad's done it a number of times, and I really like his recordings because they're excellent and they're live. There's not a professional like edited recording, although I wish there had been. But his live recordings are basically perfect. I mean, even when they're not, it's like, yeah, but you can crack that note because the rest of it is just so good. And he's a really good musician too. It's not just physically good; it's musically good. So, I mean, but that's easy to say because that's what I grew up listening to live, right? Is him doing Brandenburg. There's a really great video of Reinhold Friedrich doing it on C piccolo. That they do it. They do the third movement twice, and it's sick. And he also plays really musically and beautifully. I don't necessarily the mix on that one isn't it's too good, right? It's too up close and personal. So I can hear everything, which is great, but it doesn't overall it doesn't sound like a concerto grosso a lot because you can hear the individual voices too much. Sometimes when they're all four playing, it's really perfect. And you can't really when you mix for that, you know, you have to choose what you want to sound good. Or you have to do a post mix, right? You have to mess with it later, and it's a live performance as well. I'm trying to think. There's a oh gosh, I can't remember what the other one is. There's another. It might be another Reinhold Friedrich actually. Reinhold Friedrich's a very tall person, and so there's one recording, but it might not be Brandenburg. There's one where he has to sit on a stool and everybody else is standing, and it's not that one. But Reinhold Friedrich is just an incredible trumpet player, and so him playing it, maybe one is Baroque trumpet and one is piccolo and C. It's a Schilke C piccolo, which is really funny looking because it doesn't have any bends. It's just like a straight tube with a bell and valves in it. It's kind of cool. I'm trying to think of other recordings. I like to listen to some of the natural trumpet recordings with like real Baroque, modern Baroque orchestras because the sound of it is better to me. I've seen Trevor Pinnock and the English Consort do this live, and I believe they used two trumpet players because they had a bunch of Handel things that they also were doing. I can't remember if two of them played Brandenburg though. I think Ed Tarr was also in town that same time, maybe. Oh man, it's been so long. That was when I was really little. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, and then there's all kinds. I mean, a lot of famous trumpet players have played this piece, and the reason I don't have a favorite per se of all of those is that they're all really good. There's something about pieces like this that you generally don't try to play them if you don't have a chance of sounding really good on it. There are some bad recordings, and I'm not going to trash anybody's name here. There are some recordings that aren't my favorite, let's say. But by and large, if somebody records this piece or is asked to record it with their orchestra or a pickup group that's all professionals or whatever, they can play it. And when you're recording it, you're going to play well. Now, whether they make the same musical choices I would or not is a different matter. But I enjoy listening. In Baroque music, it's okay for people to have different choices, and you don't have to say, well, I don't think that's the way it goes. You can just say, oh, well, I might not do it that way, but that's also a valid choice, right? You are expected to interpret music in the Baroque era, and as time goes on, that expectation gets less and less because we're better at writing things down, but also because the colors and things, just the things that instruments can do that are available to composers became greater and greater. And so they become more specific, right? You could just write a bunch of notes for a Baroque trumpet player and they would play, they would figure out, first of all, how to play those notes, right? and then they would play them musically, and there was something to the way that the air moves up and down, and that just kind of naturally followed the line. So you just expected that because that's how people played. Uh, Fast forward to the 1950s, right? People play a lot of different ways on a lot of different trumpets in a lot of different countries, right? And so if you just wrote a bunch of notes on a page, well, somebody in France might interpret that totally different than somebody in Germany, which would be different than somebody in the United States at the time, right? And so you need to be more specific of, do you want it staccato, legato, what do you want? And of course we've got valves, so there's a lot to it, but the Baroque pieces, if people can play them well, it's usually just nice to hear them. So I try not to listen to the same one twice in a row, like on different days, right? So in other words, I might pick one today and just listen to it 8 or 9 times, and then tomorrow I pick a different one, just so that I get different perspectives and different ideas. And mostly now, at this point, I have the ideas that I want to put into my performance. I'm really just listening for different balances of the ensemble so that I can decide things like, do I need to get out of the way more for this part where the oboe has a solo? Or is what I have more structural? If it's an oboe solo, then maybe I can play out a little bit because it's just the two of us plus the rest. Or maybe there's a violin line there that's also a solo, right? So there's sort of counterpoint going on that I do really need to get out of the way of. Or maybe in the rehearsal, I know that, and so I can be structurally sound so that they can be together more, right? So that's the kind of stuff I'm listening for now. The trumpet playing, I'm only going to be as good as I'm going to be. So if I listen to more great trumpet playing between now and then, sure, but it's only going to make me feel worse if I don't get it, and it's not going to make me feel better. I'm not going to be like, thank goodness I listened to that Winton recording, right? Like, I mean, it's great, but it's not going to help me more than just listening to any recording, and especially different balances. So anyway, good question. I'm going to call it here because it's almost 10 o'clock, and I also need to make sure I get good sleep this week. Another little tip for those of you who are preparing recitals and other concerts that you feel some pressure about. The night before is not the most critical sleep for your concentration and physical stamina. It's actually 2 nights before, and it also matters how well you sleep the night before, sure, but that's not the most critical one. If you sleep badly 2 nights before, even if you sleep really well the night before, you still feel a little bit off, and that's just down to how much recovery time we need when we have bad sleep. You can get through a day where you slept bad the last night, as long as the last week you slept pretty well. So, but if that happens 2 days in a row, then you're working at about half capacity, even though we think we're not. We really are. So if you want that lightning fast brain and that physical stamina that's like, feels superhuman, then if you're like me and you get bad sleep most nights, just make sure you get good sleep like 5 nights in a row, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, why am I not like this all the time? And well, the answer is, yeah, you need to go to bed earlier. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to do. I will try to stream some of the rehearsal tomorrow if I can. I'm a little worried that there won't be anything to stream the next couple of days, so I'll just have like C-3 and then C-0, because I don't know if they'll let me do the stream in the dress rehearsals, but maybe I'll just put it on my stand and I'll do little bits and pieces from my phone, and it'll sound crappy, but at least you can sort of stay tuned and know what's going on, and then maybe I can do a little like post commentary from outside of the rehearsal, and that I'll try to do all that. So the rehearsals are going to be at 7:30 p.m. both Monday and Tuesday. I thought they were earlier, but they're not. So look forward to around 7:30, just post dinner kind of time, and yeah, I'll keep you apprised of what is happening here and with Brandenburg. All right. Thanks for watching, Robbie, and whoever else came by, and I will see you tomorrow.